Yeah.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
No.
Yeah, you will. Probably not dressed appropriately because I've got a pair of chinos, but belts for them. Seem to want to meet.
John, just pass over to you.
Hello, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Fabulous. We're just going to start in 5 minutes, if you don't mind. We're just going to wait for another 5 minutes, and then we will get started. Thank you. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Fantastic. Can you all hear me? Okay, excellent. I can see many happy faces, especially during exam times. So thank you very much for coming, making the time. We've got a very, very important meeting today, and I think it's going to be very productive for all of us as counsellors, and also for the students who are watching this online this evening. I think it can be a very productive session, and we're going to go over many important topics over the course of this meeting tonight. Before we start, I would like to just, remind you guys of the general rules that we have in this house, which is please raise your hand if you wish to speak. And if I acknowledged you, you are more than welcome to actually put your hand down. So you don't have to keep your hand up for 10 minutes, which makes your life easier. And I will just mark your name down here, and I will get back to you to raise your questions or points during the meeting. Also, another thing is please ensure that your mics are off during the time that you're doing after you're done with your discussions, because the camera that the people are watching for online goes crazy when there are two mics on at the same time. So once you're done, please make sure to turn that off as well. For our counsellors, one dear demand of all of us is please be polite to all of our guests who are here this evening. I'm sure of that, you don't need any reminder of it. And the other thing is that this meeting is being recorded and will be published on our YouTube channel. So don't say anything you don't want people to remember for the rest of history. That's also good to know. Okay, excellent. Now let's move on to the first part of the meeting. We're just going to quickly just go over the agenda. As you all can see, there will be basically just minutes where I'm going to go over. I'm just going to quickly prove that, and then we're going to go to UCU strikes. We're going to have two guest speakers who have joined us tonight, and after that we're going to talk about future date of council, sabbatical officer update. Unfortunately, the president of the student union, Vanessa, isn't able to join us this evening. She's feeling slightly under the weather, so we wish her speedy recovery and hope to see her in the next meeting as well. Afterwards, we're going to be talking about the NUS delegation, update on cost of living crisis, which I know a lot of councillors have been working very hard for, and a lot of them have been waiting for this for a long time. So there's going to be a good discussion on that as well. And then bylaw amendments, which are going to be proposed by our sabbatical officers, and any other business, cost of living motion, which has come through. And then the night bosses, and a small discussion on the structure of committees for the upcoming year. Excellent. Let's get started then. The minutes approval, I think you've already all received a copy of the minutes of the last meeting. I'm just going to quickly make sure that everybody's happy with that. I think everybody has seen it. So if you're all happy, we're just going to vote on the approval of the minutes and move on with the rest of the agenda. All votes in favour, please raise your hand. Okay, great. Any abstentions? Any against? Fabulous. Easiest job of my day. Approved. Just going to move on to the next part then. We're going to be doing the USU strikes, which I think is one of the most important topics of the day in the university. And a lot of students and staff have been affected by this. So we thought it's very important for the council to acknowledge this issue. We've got two guest speakers this evening, one a representative from UCU, Rosie Bailey. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Fantastic. And we also got Senior Vice President of the University of Aberdeen, Mr. Carl Leidecker. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Just a reminder for all the councillors, this is simply an update by the two representatives. This is not a discussion, this is not a debate. There will be separate Q&A sessions at the end of each update, so you can ask any questions you like, and you can, for example, even raise your concerns, but it is simply an update and a Q&A session afterwards. So please keep that in mind for during the update. Okay, another reminder before we all start is please just say your name as councillors, state your position, and also your pronouns, so that we're all clear on that. Fantastic. On that note, I think we can get started with the first update from UCU representative, Rosie Bailey. There might be. Oh, is it not working? I think we had the same problem last week as well. If that doesn't work, then I might just have to ask you. Oh, I can give them the microphone as well.
Thank you. It's okay, I could just swap. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yes, fantastic.
Hi, so thanks for inviting me to come along. My name is Rosie Bailey and I'm the UCU PGR rep at Aberdeen. And I've also got Mel with us, who is our vice chair. Between us, we're both going to cover, I'm going to give an update from PGRs, and Mel is going to talk about the staff side of things. So I joined the branch over the summer after being part of the PGRs Against Low Pay national campaign, which was a grassroots campaign organised by PGRs. That stands for postgraduate researchers, by the way, just in case nobody knows what that means. So that's kind of people doing PhDs. And we started a campaign to try and get some help with the cost of living. Specifically, we were contacting and targeting UKRI, who are one of the biggest funders of PhD researchers in the UK. After a lot of hard work, we did eventually get a stipend increase from them. But we'd also asked for them for some help with things that they could do to use their influence, because other funders and universities will pay stipends in line with UKRI. So we wanted them to use their influence to help us get things that would help other PGRs. So not just UKRI funded PGRs would benefit from it. You would have self-funded students, university funded students, or students who are funded by other sources entirely. So while that was going on, I joined the branch because there wasn't anything happening locally at the time. So since then, we've started a local campaign trying to understand what the needs are of our PGRs in relation to the cost of living crisis. And we've identified, three kind of important groups of PGRs who need some perhaps more urgent help than others, such as self-funded PGRs, internationals, and people who may have additional costs, such as if you're a carer, if you have childcare responsibilities, or maybe you have health conditions which require you to use medical equipment, or you can't just have the heating off because the cold weather causes you increased pain or other increased kind of symptoms that you have to deal with. So,
excuse me, I'm so sorry to interrupt
No,
you.
of course.
Can I just ask you to speak slightly louder for the people who are watching this online as well?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No worries, no worries at all. Thank you very much. Just for the sake of that. Please
Sorry.
continue. I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's fine. You're okay. So over the past couple of months, we've been working to build PGR support and to get PGRs to join UCU, because a lot of us do teach. We do hold other kind of roles such as captioning in the university. So we are, working with students as well, trying to provide them the best education, that we possibly can. And of course, we know that the undergraduate and taught master's students and even staff who are on the lower grades, they're also equally as affected by the cost of living crisis as we are. And indeed, we've been speaking with the Students Against the Cost of Living Aberdeen, and we're happy to work with them and support them as well, because we'd like to see the students best supported as possible. So yeah, during the strikes over the past couple of weeks, we've been organising craft outs. We've got a little leaflet that I think Mel has just passed around that we held in AUSA, and we just got together and spent some time talking about the issues that we're facing, and also knitting, crocheting, coming up with craft-related things we could do to produce something to help us keep warm at home, whether that's hats and scarves and gloves and things like that. And also if we had the capacity to be able to donate things to our friends and colleagues who may also be sitting in cold houses as well. So I think, is that everything that I needed to cover with regards to PGRs? Yeah, I think so at this point. So I'll pass over to Mel, who's going to give facing update.
That's great. Thanks, Rosie. And thanks, Council, for having us as well. Really pleased to be here today because, like Rosie, as well as someone who works, I'm a teaching assistant in the School of Education. I'm also a student. I'm trying to desperately finish writing up a master's dissertation that isn't getting as far as I'd like it to be right now. So I've dragged myself out of the library over here to give you guys what's hopefully an important update about where we're at with our industrial action. So most of you will know that there was strike action on campus last week and the week before. So I just wanted to quickly kind of like take you to how we got there, where we are, and kind of that feeds in with some of the stuff Rosie's saying about the PGR campaigns that we're doing around the cost of living crisis at the moment. So I've distributed quite a little handy kind of, I call it a bit Unions 101. So I'm aware people have really different knowledge and experiences of trade unions and trade unions in the UK as well. So there's some information here about what trade unions are, the current dispute in education, what the unions' demands are. That's kind of like what I like to call the sexy bit, the bit in the middle with the kind of like why the strikes are happening now, what the demands are. So to kind of outline that for you, the demands that the union's making in terms of what we think our members deserve in the current economic climate is there's around two specific disputes that we're having. One is about our pensions and the other is about pay terms and conditions. With regards to pensions, last time our pension was valued was in the middle of the global pandemic, of the COVID crisis, and it was found to be in deficit. Unsurprisingly, markets were collapsing around the world. So at that point, there was, I think it was a 14 billion deficit in the pension that academics have. And so that was reviewed and they decided to take massive cuts to pensions, 35% decrease in what we can expect to get when we retire. However, since then, since the world has started to kind of pick itself up and put itself back together in this kind of like, not even post-COVID, this just mid-COVID life that we live in, our pension is back into surplus. And I know last week it was said that we're 5.6 billion in surplus. And the union's position is that if the pension is in surplus, we want to see our benefits reinstated and restored. And we were really disappointed last week to have reached out to the university management and to not be able to have a meeting about that. It was the union's request that before the strike action on Wednesday, we could discuss specifically pensions. There's a way forward on that, and that unfortunately wasn't forthcoming. The other part on our demands, and again, it's in the middle page in your little booklet, but is around that we want there to be national action on pay gaps, specifically on gender, disability, and race pay gaps that are prevalent across the sector, not just here at the University of Aberdeen. We want there to be work done looking at workload reduction. You may be surprised to know that an average of full-time academic works rather than is paid for, works for about 54, 55 hours a week. We are spending time at our weekends, doing your marking, answering your emails. I know as a student and someone who works with students to support them that I'm equally as guilty at sending my tutors the Sunday evening emails as I am at getting them. So I can't really remember, but the reality is that we live in this kind of 24-hour really e-led society now, and that there's a lot of demand on academics for that. Casualisation again across the whole of the university sector, and again there's more information on this in your booklets, that we're just seeing more and more staff who are on casual contracts, who are on fixed term contracts, who are on, whilst we don't have 0-hour contracts at the University of Aberdeen, we do have guaranteed minimum hours contracts. So for example, myself, I'm guaranteed 30 hours a year work. When it's teaching time, I teach 24 hours a week. So I've filled my contractual obligation within almost a week. And for me personally, that's had the impact of I've had credit card applications turned down because I haven't been able to say, well, this is what my income is going to be for the year, and offer anything like meaningfully to be able to back that up. And so there's a real life impact on that. I was in debt, couldn't get another credit card, managed to shop around and get a different one, but my credit score was taking a battering in the process. And on pay as well, we're asking for either RPI, so that's the retail price index plus 2%, because we think having an inflation pay rise is standing still, or 12%, whichever is higher. I think it's worth noting that over the since 2009, we've had essentially a 25% pay cut in real terms, in terms of that our pay increases haven't kept up with inflation. So we're essentially working a day and a bit for free, and all that extra time that we do to get up to the 55 hours a week. So I think the sector's in real trouble from our perspective as far as staff are concerned, and that's what we're after. We think it's realistic. We think there is the money to do it across the sector. There's over 40 billion in reserves across the entirety of the higher education sector, and specifically with regards to the University of Aberdeen, we've seen some really big revenue increases between the year 2020-21 stroke 2021-22. It's always really hard to say them compared to seeing them. The university's revenue went up by £25 million for 1 year. That's 11%. That's higher than inflation. And during that same amount of time, staff costs went down from what had been 62% to 60%. And our cost ratio, so what you pay like per head of staff compared to operating costs, also went down. So our position as a trade union is that there is money within the university, that actually there's more, that 11% that they made that year is more than inflation. It's about priorities and budget lines. And we think there should be more of a priority and budget line in the direction of the staff rather than just shiny buildings. So yeah, we kind of think there's a case to answer on that. So yeah, I don't want to take any more of your time. I said a lot of the information's there, happy to take questions. But I'm also aware that there's someone from university management here as well to outline kind of their position on the current dispute as well.
Well, thank you very much for both of you on your updates. I hope everyone can hear me, yeah? Yeah, fab. Thank you very much for your updates. That was very insightful. What we're going to do now is open the Q&A for any of the councillors who are here, and also people who have joined us online this evening, both students and councillors. If they have any questions with regards to the UCU updates, we're more than happy to take them. Any questions? Christina? Just make sure to announce your position and your name and your pronouns. Thank you so much.
Christina Schmidt, Vice Chair of Communities. Yeah. Pronouns are she, her. First of all, thank you for sharing all the information with us and being here today. My question would be, how can we as councillors or as the student council support you during the strikes, or on also getting your voices out there on that matter?
Yeah, well, thanks a lot for, it means a lot to hear messages of support. And I know I spent a lot of time out on the picket lines and was really grateful at the support that we got from students of the sweeties and hot drinks and stuff that kind of came our way, which was really welcome on a cold morning. But I think to us, like, that act of solidarity in itself is a brilliant thing in terms of what you can do to add any kind of voice of support to our aims. Would be one of the big things we're asking, and the details of how to do this is in the leaflets, is to contact the principal, contact George Boyne, and say that you're supportive of the UCU's position. We're in a unique position in the University of Aberdeen in that George is also the head of UCEA, which is the body that oversees all universities. This year the chair has gone to him, so it amplifies the voice here of us being able to say, actually, yes, we're saying this about the University of Aberdeen, but we're saying it about the whole sector. It's not just the University of Aberdeen that this applies to. And obviously we've been through some of the kind of the financials, and I'm sure Carl will go over some of the financials as well, but I think it's fair to say across the whole of the UK there is money in the sector. It's about the prioritisation of what's happening with that money. And I know certainly here as well, we're really keen to be having a dialogue with students. We've met with some of the reps from AUSA, from the sabbaticals, where we were discussing how the university had been having a discussion with us around where the money will go to in terms of what we weren't paid, because we don't get paid when we go on strike. So we've asked for that to be ring fenced for student hardship. I think Carl will say as well, that's been kind of put to student experience, kind of exactly how that's going to land. We've yet to find out. That will be finalised in January, I'm assuming by university management when the deductions are made. But also we made really strong representations that we believe that the C6 and C7 process should be suspended during the industrial action. And I think, again, as student councillors, being able to keep the pressure on with stuff like that is really important through like the academic bodies. We are massively worried about the impact on students of there not being classes. So we said we wanted to mitigate that. So in terms of any C6 and C7 action, we wanted that to not happen. We made that really clear to Carl and to Debbie Dyker, who we met with from HR. And yeah, we've met with Vanessa and Camilio and said that. And we're especially worried about the effects on Tier 4 students in terms of international students that are coming here, because at the end of the day, there's a lot more for them to lose in terms of that as well. And I mean, you'll see from the presentations that the university gives that there's a lot about the income stream of international students. I think there's a lot of thought of like the kind of the money that they bring with them rather than necessarily the experience a lot of the time as well. So I think that's why we're especially keen to say actually there's something really specific we want to think about with Tier 4 students, which is that they should not be at a detriment because of our industrial action. So yeah, as student councillors, you can take those messages back into your schools and be feeding them back through to your heads of schools, and also getting in touch, I said, with the principal directly. His email address is in our literature.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Any other questions? Yes, we're going to go to Adam.
I think that's working there now. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So yeah, firstly, very well answered for the questions already been asked. So my question maybe is slightly more difficult for you. For those students that would have the opinion of why should they support something that's like affecting or taking like a negative part on their studies for the strikes, what would you like say to them students that have that opinion?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, because I think we can't take student support for granted and stuff like this. I think, you know, it'd be really easy to just go, oh, yeah, our students will support us. But I mean, from my experience, as someone who teaches, who has students, and I engage students in conversations about the fact that I'm going to be taking industrial action. That means next week I'm not going to be here to deliver my class, discuss with them why that is. And I think like having those conversations has made a big difference, speaking about how that our working conditions are student learning conditions, and that actually it's about investment within education. That is something that you know, I don't do this job for fun. I do this job because I'm passionate about education and about learning, and the fact that the sector is on its knees, in my opinion, in many ways, means that it's students who are having the difficulties. That, you know, you want to be able to go to university, enjoy yourself at university, be able to afford to turn your central heating on at university, to be able to leave with good qualifications and good prospects for what you go and do next. And some people might even want to stay around in the world of academia, which we would love them to do. But what we're seeing is a brain drain at the moment on the sector, where people aren't staying in terms of like working in academia. We want people to be able to stay, and we want our students to be able to enjoy themselves at university, to be able to learn, to be able to, you know, have the experience that everyone wants when they go to university. And it's been a really tough couple of years with COVID as well. And it's been really difficult for us to make the decision about taking industrial action. And so one of the things I've been really key to share with my students is some of the stuff that we've decided to do from a tactical industrial point of view with our regards to what we're doing with our strike action. So the UCU it's a democratic organisation. We had delegates from across all of our branches across the UK get together to set our industrial action agenda and what it would look like. The reason we have gone out for 3 days this academic year, so before December, is that we're trying to minimise disruption for students. The idea isn't that we're disrupting students, it's that we're disrupting institutions and management. We are not having a marking boycott right yet. Our members have expressed that if we need to do a marking boycott, we will look to do one next semester, but we do not want to put our students in that position right now. And again, that's why locally we've been really firm on the C6 and 7 position, that we don't want there to be a detriment to our students. So we've called 3 days. We've been trying really hard to not have the marking boycott now. We are working to contract, but those of us whose jobs it is to mark, we are marking your papers, we are giving you your feedback. I know I've working really hard to turn all my students' work around as quickly as possible, but I think there needs to be a dialogue with our students that's really honest, that says, if the employers don't start to come towards the table and to meet us on demands, this is what escalation of our action might look like. There might be a marking boycott next semester. We don't want to get there. we've got our own negotiations are set with UCEA and with USS, our pension provider at the moment, that we are saying we are around the table until the 31st of January and believe there can be progress, and that we don't think that it is necessary for us to take further action if there can be real headway made in negotiations. But we're prepared to if we have to, and we'd rather not be there. I said, and that's why marking boycotts are not on the table right now, but they might be later.
Thank you very much once again for your answer. Any more questions on the UCU strikes they would like to ask their representatives? Yes, we're going to go to Babak.
Thank you for your information. My name is Babak. I'm chair of the Forster Hill. Just wondering, I was just reading through the leaflet. You were mentioning here that the £3.4 billion universities finished 2020 and 21 with £3.4 billion more cash in banks than any started with. Do you have any sort of idea that where would they probably have spent this money?
So my honest answer is on the 3.4 billion, no, because that's across the entirety of the sector. I think it's fair to say that we're seeing trends across the sector of there being more money put into to new buildings and to infrastructure. We've actually seen a lot more money going into the pockets of principals and vice chancellors than previously, with some really quite shiny pay packets for members at the top of the kind of the rungs in university as well. Those of us at the bottom are on quite pitiful contracts.
Thank you very much for this. Now we're going to go to a question that has been raised online by Richard. So is Richard going to be typing, or is he going to be saying it? I think he can say it.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Richard, we can hear you.
Hi, I'm Richard. I'm the PG. Oh, I'm feeding back. I'm Richard. I'm the PGR convener and mature student convener. I use he, they pronouns. This is less a question and more just I wanted to raise a point. I would like to get in touch with you guys about this because I feel like as a PGR student myself, as a new PhD student, I think there are a lot of PhD students, especially in first year, who are kind of unaware of how this affects them. I'm going to be marking, I'm teaching myself, and really the strikes are something I think a lot of us think of as being for staff and less about for us. So if we could arrange a way to come together and try and inform newer PGR students, that would be really helpful, I think.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's a really good point. And I remember when I started my PhD, UCU were on strike and I was a bit confused. I was a few months in, was confused about what exactly it meant and where or whether I was representative by UCU as well. But I'm a few years in and yeah, I've been doing teaching, I've been doing marking, and yeah, there's definitely a place here for PGRs. Yeah, it would be great to catch up with you. I don't know how to exchange details somehow.
Can I just ask that if you want, you can share your email, but I asked Richard not to share his contact information because this is being watched online. So he might not want to share it with everybody else. So if you want to share your details, then he can get in touch with you later on.
Yeah, Richard, if you email our branch, which is ucu@aberdeen.ac.uk, it's on the email list for the university. It will get its way to our inbox and then we'll make sure it gets to Rosie or myself. Yeah.
I also just wanted to add, Richard, that UCU, the co-leads on PGRs of staff, they have organised the first UCU PGR conference, which is happening at the end of January next year. It's online, and that will be a place for PGRs from across the country to come and talk about how we want to be represented, what we want to see if we were considered staff. So that's something that I would recommend checking out as well. Attendance it's online only now. They've sold out of in person, but it's completely free. So that's something to check out as well to help you figure out where you fit in all of this as well.
Thank you so much for that. Now I'm just going to go quickly to Sophie up there.
Hello, Sophie, Vice Chair for Sports Pronouns, she, her. My understanding is that there's been a bit of cutting in funding these past few weeks. So how would you, how to phrase this? With that cutting in funding, do you think your demands might not be as sustainable as they could be with the funding that used to be there? So what would you say to that?
I mean, I'd say that, again, it's about what an institution prioritises in terms of where its money goes. And the figures that I've been doing today are the ones that George Boyne is doing the rounds with the schools in. This is presentation data from last month. It's nothing that's just fallen off. And I think there are projected figures that are looking for how we go with regards to that there have been slightly less international students, I think, than they'd hoped to enrol. But again, I think that it's projected, it's difficult. It was the answer we were given with the pensions that we had to live with. Oh, well, that's projected, so let's see how it goes. It's kind of where we are. And I think it's about where the university then chooses to prioritise that. And I think I certainly am of the opinion that if last year there was money coming in that was above inflation, they can at least meet the rise in inflation. And if that isn't the case, then let's talk about it sensibly and see where we can get towards. Because at the moment, I said, like, staff costs went down. We've had like a below inflation pay rise year after year after year. And if things need to start turning around and going in the right direction.
That makes sense. Thank you. My last question is, with that in mind, and I'm sure as students we'd support you because we know it'd then impact us and we'll probably be a bit more stressed about when are we going to get our grades back, what kind of feedback can we expect, is it going to impact the delivery of the experience that we're currently having, and I'm assuming it would in a very potentially negative way. So wouldn't it be better to have this discussion with the Senate that could actually produce the changes that you are expecting that you need to take into consideration?
Yeah, so again, this might be something that Carl comes in at in terms of like the governance of the university side of stuff. We do have representatives from the union on the Senate. The Senate looks at kind of the educational background and stuff, and then court deals with the financial sides. So there are discussions that happen at the Senate around this, but in terms of like the pay negotiations, they're set nationally on national pay spines. So this is all the universities in the UK who are out around this. So there are discussions that happen locally, but largely it's a national demand on pay as well. But I'm still of the position, and I think it's the stuff that George Boyne has put around, that the University of Aberdeen can afford this. It's about where they're prioritising to put their money.
Thank you. That's everything.
Thank you very much, both of you. Is there any other questions or concerns? Anything online? No? Okay, excellent. In that case, thank you very much for your insightful answers. Now we're going to move on to the second part of the UCU strike updates, and we're going to ask Professor Carl Leidecker to give us his update. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here. And I'm going to talk about both the national position and our position in the University of Aberdeen. Is it okay in terms of sound? Yeah. Okay. This is a national dispute we've just heard, and there are two dimensions to it. One is pay and one is pensions. I'm going to deal with the pensions first because I think it's the easiest one to deal with, though pensions are really complex. The pension is valued every 3 years. The government has a pension regulator, and that was put in place after some major failures of private sector pension schemes. And we are bound by the pension regulator that the pension scheme has a valuation every 3 years. When the valuation last occurred, as you said, there was a massive deficit. There is a legal requirement of the trustees, some of which are provided by the trade unions and some of which are provided by the employers, to ensure that that deficit is addressed. And we therefore had to take some action, which was both to increase the contributions that both the university and every member of staff who pays into that pensions had to pay in. And at the same time, we had to limit the benefits in order to have a recovery plan. Now that has to happen every 3 years. If no action had been taken on benefits, we would have had to pay together over 50% on top of our salaries as pension contributions. And that is simply unaffordable for both staff and universities, which is why the pension scheme was reformed after the last valuation. Now, the great news is the valuation is now looking much more positive, partly because of the economic recovery, but really because we've entered into a much higher inflation period, which is beneficial for pension schemes of this type. So the question for us and UCU is, should that valuation be more positive the next time it is done, which is in 23-24, what do we want to do? Do we want to restore the benefits to the levels that they were before, or do we want to cut the contributions that we make as a university and that also make, and we do that in a 2/3, 1/3. So the university pays 2/3 of those contributions and employees pay 1/3. So we can either restore benefits, hopefully we can do that, and or make some reductions in the contributions that we all make. And that will be decided in 23-24. There is no legal basis for any change before then, because that's the legal requirement and through that valuation. So we believe, as the employers across the whole of the UK, that that will be the moment to have those conversations about the future of the pension scheme. And therefore we feel that the industrial action around pensions is not really where the full energy of the discussions are. And that's why I want to turn to pay, because I think it is about pay where there is a conversation to be had. The current position at the moment is that the universities made an offer on pay. That was then rejected by UCU. It was then, there's a period of negotiation between the two sides that didn't reach an agreement through the mediation process that happens. And the universities then paid that increase from the 1st of August. That was a minimum of 3% for everybody, rising to 9% for people on the bottom of the pay spine. Now, we all recognise that the world has moved on. The cost of living has risen very sharply in the last 6 months. And that is why, as a university, we made a one-off payment of £750 to every member of staff at grade 6 or below. That's everybody up to £42,000 a year, including everybody on the guaranteed minimum hours contracts, people on fractional contracts, PhD students who work for the university, student ambassadors who work for the university. Everybody got a minimum of £150, even if they were only working a very small number of hours. Because we recognise as an employer that we had a little bit of money, we did quite well last year. We took that decision as a senior team in May, June to ensure that we starting to address the cost of living. What is going on nationally across the UK now is that the employers, George Boyne, as you say, the principal, as chair of UCEA, has met with UCU and they issued a joint statement only, I think it was yesterday or the day before, which is all of the universities have committed to opening the 23-24 pay round early. So we are now in discussions, a period of intense negotiations between UCU and the university body to see whether, and all the universities have been consulted and they've all agreed on that consultation that we're prepared to open the pay round early and make an early payment, potentially on the 1st of March, that would start to address the cost of living. So I don't think we'll be going back to there's no mandate for the employers to open up again the pay round that we had last year. And the 3% that was paid, but there is an opportunity now to work constructively together at the national level to see whether we can reach an agreement, and that's welcome, and we welcome those discussions that are going to happen, as you mentioned. All of that's a national thing. What are we doing at the local level? The university works really constructively with our trade unions. We have a really good open dialogue across the 3 trade unions, UCU, Unite and Unison. I lead on that on behalf of the university. We've had really cordial discussions around what we do. We are not taking an aggressive approach to strike action. We're working with our trade union colleagues, understanding the pressures that they are under and that they are part of a national dispute. And we understand that. We are also working together on a whole range of the issues that were mentioned. So we work on casualisation. You mentioned the 30 hours guaranteed minimum. So that was a joint piece of work that we did to try and address the casualisation that there is at university. And I think that's a good piece of work. We're trying to move where we can, where people are on casual contracts, we're trying to move them onto more substantive contracts when we see that there's a proliferation of guaranteed minimum hours contracts. We are a living wage employer. We pay the national living wage. We've been doing that for many years. Not all universities do that. And we are committed to that into the future. We have also, we've got a group working on workload. We've had a joint piece of work. You mentioned workload. There are the 4 fights of that the UCU talk about: workload, casualization. I've led a whole piece of work on workload. You mentioned emails at the weekend. We've tried to say to all of our staff, do not email out of hours or at weekends. And I think that's starting to help to address that culture of being always on. That's just one small example of the things that we're trying to do together. If we could encourage students not to email out of working hours and weekends, that would be very welcome as well. We've done a lot on gender pay gaps and other pay gaps. We do an equal pay audit. We have a whole range of action under that. We also have a joint working group with UCU and other trade unions on things like the 35-hour week and other things, because we recognise that there's a range of things that we would like to do around equalisation of holidays across the academic and the professional services as well. So what I also want to point out is that one of the ways in which we have tried to use any revenue that we have is to increase the number of staff that are available. And the reason we've done that is because we recognise that the workload pressures that you mentioned are really high. Our student staff ratios in this university have not been the best, but if you look at the league tables now, you will see in The Guardian that we started to address that. That affects all students, and it also affects all of our academic colleagues working in schools. So we're trying to invest in the academic staff, and at the same time, it's not only about academic staff, because we recognise the high workloads in the professional services. We recognise the complexities of the student body, the changing student body, the greater number of overseas students, the greater number of people coming in January, the mental health issues that students face. And so we've also increased the academic and professional services headcount. So we've invested in both of those in order to try to address workload pressures. It's horrible that there's a trade-off between pay and the number of people. And I accept the figures that you mentioned, that academic pay has fallen behind other sectors. George will say this as well. He said it to the staff in the open session this afternoon. There is no doubt that academic pay has fallen behind. What do we do about that? I think we will be able to move on pay in the sector. I don't think we'll reach the kinds of levels of inflation plus 2% because our income is constrained as a university, as a sector, and 30% of all universities in the UK are in deficit. And we are also just about breaking even every year, and we have set a deficit budget this year, and we're struggling to meet that. So we're needing to recognise that the cost of living pressures that affect all staff also affect universities, like utilities and all of those sorts of things as well. So I'll stop there. Basically, I hope I've given you a sense of the overview of what's going on nationally, but that also we always want to work really constructively in order to keep a de-escalated position within the university in the way we work with our trade union colleagues.
Thank you very much, Professor Leydecker. That was a very insightful update. Now we're just going to turn into our councillors and also people online for any questions, concerns they would like to ask. Sophie.
Sophie, Vice Chair for Sports, pronouns she, her. Thank you for this update. It's great to know what is going on the other side of the issue. I've heard, well, you've spoke a lot about the short-term solutions that you've provided to staff. I was wondering if there's any long-term solutions or goals or vision that you'd see that could help staff and students, but on more than a long-term basis, rather than making these quick fixes and hoping it will go for the better.
Yeah, so under Aberdeen 2040, we need to ensure that the university is financially sustainable. We then want to make sure we offer an excellent student experience and we carry out really good research. That's what we're here for research and for education. That's our long-term vision, that's our purpose. Aberdeen 2040 is what motivates us as a senior team and as a community. And our staff surveys show that there's a really high buy-in to that across our staff community. Our strategy has been to try, if you look back at the history of the university went through a really quite challenged financial period between about 2010 10 up to the 2018 when the principal arrived. And what the principal did was say, we're not going to have any more cuts. We're going to try and grow our revenue in order to be able to invest in staff and student experience. And that's what we've been successful at doing. And you're quite right to point out, we have grown the revenue. If we don't grow the revenue, then we will all be in difficult circumstances. We won't be able to pay the salary increases. We won't be able to invest in student experience. Just to be clear, when we look at the surplus or deficit of a university, the amount we spend on buildings does not affect that. That is the spending of capital, which is different from revenue. It's revenue that we need to spend on, for example, things like salaries, but capital, building a new building, refurbishing this room, that's a cash cost, but it doesn't affect the surplus or deficit of the university in a particular year. So it's not quite accurate to say that we're spending a load of money on buildings. And it's also not true to say that the reserves that universities have are available to spend, because we get given money by donors for a particular purpose, much of it, for example, for student scholarships. That is not money that the university can spend on staff salaries. So our long-term plan is to continue to grow our revenue, diversify our student body, which we have done. We have recruited many more postgraduate students than we did. And that then allows us to invest in academic staff, professional services staff, but we need to get the balance right between the numbers of those staff and being able to pay them appropriately. And I think that is a discussion for the whole sector, recognising that the money we get from Scottish Government does not cover the cost of educating our undergraduate students, and nor does the 9,250 that UK universities, particularly south of the border, get. There's, you know, that's frozen till 2025, inflation at 10%. You can work out for yourself that that's only worth, you know, about 5,000 or 6,000 from the point when those fees were first introduced. So we're all under huge cost pressures, all of us as individuals in our own lives and universities as well. And it's about, as a sector, coming to a collective view about how we are able to be sustainable at a time when it's really difficult for everybody.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you. Any other questions? Yes, we're just going to go over there and then come to you.
Miles Roadhill, Education Committee, pronounce he, him. Thank you everyone first and foremost for those presentations. That was really insightful. I was just wondering, so part of the dispute, as I understand it as well, is insecure and precarious contracts. And I was wondering, sector-wide, the trend, as I understand it, at least seems to be that those things are increasing. Does the university mirror that, and what would the position of the management be on that? Thank you very much.
Yeah, so we've done a piece of work together on casualisation, and we've tried to, we recognised, and we got some feedback from UCU, and we worked together on this, that there were signs that our guaranteed minimum hours contracts were not being used in the way that we thought they should be. And that's why we've now increased the number of guaranteed minimum hours up to 30, which I think is helpful, but there's further work to do on this. I think there's a real problem with the way research is funded across the higher education sector. So much of the casualisation is people on research grants. So it's research fellows at grade 6, grade 7. And I think that is not easy to solve. I'm not quite sure how we do that. I chair the what's called the redundancy committee in the university. That is a committee that isn't making people redundant just to get rid of them. What it is people coming to the end of the funding on whatever contract it is that's time limited. And we have moved a number of people from where we know that the funding is going to be recurrent. We've moved them from, you know, another 3-year contract onto a permanent contract. And we're very mindful of that. And we work together again. We have a joint committee with our trade union colleagues to look at people who are on those kinds of contracts. So recognise the issue. We do not have 0 hours contracts at this university. We have guaranteed minimum hours contracts. I think in that sense, we're a good employer. We've also recognised it's not always working as well as we should. We've put some work together to see whether we can address that this year. We'll review that and then see whether we can take further steps to improve it further. But it's not easy. and we recognise that it's not easy for people on those contracts, recognise the issues that were raised by our colleague.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to move on very quickly to you over there.
Hi, that working?
Yes.
Great. Helen Worley, president of Debater, she, her pronouns, please. So one of the things that you said about pensions was that next year is when you'll be looking at it again. However, I've been at this university for 5 years, and all of those years there's been some degree of industrial action. Last time it was also about pensions. So it appears to me that the UCU has been asking, up until the last point you made a decision on pensions, to reconsider your decision, and you haven't. And so they are talking about it again. I think then that it is a relevant thing for them to talk about. And the idea of the early pay round, can you elaborate on that? Because from my understanding, you said that you will give an advance payment in March, but I think it's pretty well known that the cost of living is going to hit worst in the winter, in the next few months. So are you intending to do something over the winter to make sure that staff are looked after, or is it the spring?
So the discussions are going on nationally now. I think we heard from our colleague that there's a period of negotiation up to the end of January, and I think it's through that there's early discussions on the next pay round. So that is the timetable, which might then lead to if agreement can be reached on that, then there could well be a payment at that point. So that's the first point. In terms of the pensions situation, there is no getting away from the fact that there was a £14 billion deficit, and no getting away from the fact that the pension regulator says that must be addressed. That is not an option for universities or UCU, who jointly have a committee of 4 members of UCU and 4 members of the university, and an independent of the universities, an independent chair who try to decide on what should happen. So no doubt the pension scheme has been in some difficulty for some time. That is got to be addressed and is legally required to be addressed by the trustees, which includes members of UCU. So yes, it has been challenging. It's been driven by a complete change in the way pensions have been affected by world events over the last 10 years. All of that quantitative easing, you've heard a lot about the bond markets and the Liz Truss and all of that. All of that meant that the returns for pensions have been really severely affected. Now we're in a different situation, and that allows a more positive conversation. But the reality was that many staff were withdrawing from the pension scheme because it was simply unaffordable at the levels that were required. So we needed to do something around what the liabilities of the pension scheme were, in other words, what would be the benefits, in order to prevent more and more people being priced out of getting a pension at all. And if they get priced out of the pension, it means, yes, they're not paying in, but they're also missing out on what's a kind of deferred salary, which is well over 20%. So we have to solve the pension issue together. And we are constrained by those external realities, by the pension regulator, by UK pension law. And that's why those decisions had to be taken. And it did require universities to strengthen their covenant, which is the guarantees that they made about the pension scheme. So if one university went bust, all the other universities have to pick that up. We also have to report on our borrowing as universities. Each university now needs to be very careful it doesn't overborrow, precisely to let the pension regulator have trust that the pension scheme will not go bust, and the state would then have to pick that up. That's what happened with a famous pension scheme in the past, where all the other pension schemes and ultimately the government have to pick that up. The government won't allow that to happen anymore. So our room for manoeuvre is constrained.
All right, thank you very much for that. And I'm just going to move to Christina. Oh, so sorry, Caitlin. Apologies, so many members. I think dementia is finally getting to me at the age of 20, so apologies. Please go ahead.
Hi, Kate Majors, convener for School of Psychology, she, her pronouns. So I've had many different conversations, myself and some other council members have had many different conversations with members of staff and we found out that up until a few years ago, that the pay that stopped during strike action was put into the hardship fund, but then more recently it's been put into the student experience. Can I just get some clarification on what that entails, please? Thank you.
Yeah, so what we're very clear is that it doesn't benefit the university. We need to find a way to deploy the money that is not paid to people who are on strike. And we have taken different views at different times. It's also important to recognise that the industrial action falls differentially in different schools. There are a number of schools in the university where there are almost no members of UCU, or if there are, they almost do not go on strike. So what we did last time was try to look to ensure that where the strike action had been most significant, in those schools where the highest number of people were on strike, that we targeted the money for the student experience in those schools. We haven't yet made a decision about how we are going to use the money from the strike, but we will. We've had some representations from UCU about how that might be used. We've heard, student hardship is an obvious thing to put it into, but what we do make sure is that it goes directly to benefit students, and preferably with some kind of ownership of that by the schools as well, who are most affected. So student hardship can we have got student hardship funds anyway. So as I say, we will be still to have those discussions. And what we've also done, just to be clear, we also discussed with UCU when we'll make those deductions. We're making those deductions in January at their request and not in December, in order to obviously try not to affect the money that staff have in the run-up to the festive break.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. We're just going to go to Babak very quickly.
Thank you very much for your update. My name is Babak. I'm chair of the Forster Hill. I'm just wondering, for the Plan 2040, how university is planning to increase its income and what channels are universities hoping to investigate further in terms of not mainly on the tuition fees, but more in terms of like industrial, like contracts or outside of university. And I also have a second question. Can I also say it now? How would you address the claims of UCU about increasing salaries of staff in band number 1, 2, 3? Increase in salary is not kind of representing the deficit, and it's much more than the people in lower bands. Thank you.
If that's a very long question to answer, you can answer the first part and he can repeat the question again if you like.
Yeah, I think the problem was I didn't quite understand it, but I will maybe come back to that. So in terms of increasing our income, we appointed a vice principal regional engagement, Pete Edwards, precisely because we are not yet raising the levels of revenue that we would hope from, for example, industry sponsorship. So that's a piece of work that we're doing. Other income sources are clearly things like our catering and those sorts of things. We also are planning quite a big fundraising campaign. We last had one a number of years ago. That's been delayed because of COVID, but we hope to use philanthropic income as a way of growing our income. But the reality of UK higher education, you're seeing it in the newspapers now, is that the predominant way in which universities can raise their income is through the international student recruitment. That is the reality of higher education finances in the UK, which is why you are seeing the debates around immigration policy and potential impact on student recruitment, and why that would be really, really challenging for universities. So there isn't enough public funding going into universities in Scotland from the Scottish government, and nor from the UK government into the fees that are charged to students that they pay back afterwards. So that's fixed. So we can expect that the public funding in the higher education sector in the UK is likely to be static or falling in cash and real terms, probably for the next 4 or 5 years. So we will need to look to student recruitment, which is, one of the UK's one of the most successful things, because that helps to fund all of the things that we want to do as a university, including ensuring that those people have a fantastic education and go on to really good careers, either staying in the UK, and I'm not, the Scottish Government would like to see more inward immigration to the UK, particularly to Scotland, to start new businesses from graduates, or returning to their home countries to carry on their careers there. So yes, we look to all the revenue streams, but the reality is that the student fee income is a very large proportion of the opportunity that exists for UK universities. And your second question.
Yeah, I think you can address the second question. Maybe rephrase the wording this time.
Sure. So there are claims that people who are running the university are earning, and they're seeing like increase in their salaries much more than the people who are, for example, are teachers or staff support. So, and these increase in salaries for the people in band 1 and 2 are not representing what the deficit is. Can you tell us maybe more about this?
Sorry, yes, I was confused by the band 1 or 2, because we start our salaries at grade 1 is the lowest paid, so I was just confused by that. I don't think I can speak for the university vice chancellor salaries in other universities. I think and nor will I speak on behalf of the principal, but I don't believe he's had a pay rise. In fact, we all took a pay cut during the pandemic voluntarily as a senior team in solidarity with the financial situation of the university. And I think that was the right thing to do for us as a team. I think we showed leadership in that, and we showed that we care about the future of the university and its financial sustainability. So I understand, people have to justify their own salaries in other universities. I'm not going to defend vice chancellor salaries. That's for individual universities and vice chancellors to determine. But I don't think I'm aware of the principal having had a major salary rise.
All right, thank you very much for that. And now we're just going to go to Christina, and I got her name right this time. Okay, excellent.
Christina, Vice Chair of on statement has a clarification on what the student experience is and what it's spent on at the moment, and how will that be adjusted in the future, especially as what influences our student experience most at the moment is the cost of living crisis, and that needs to be tackled, and the hardship fund is a way to tackle that, especially for those people who are suffering the most under the cost of living crisis. So if you could elaborate this decision, why you decided to move that away, generally the student experience, and also on what my colleague said over there, how is the university tackling inequality amongst the payment or the wage gaps within its system?
Okay. So the cost of living crisis, I think a lot of work is going on in partnership with AUSA on cost of living. The university is working closely with you. I believe there's a working group, which I'm not part of, but is looking at that to try and address that. We're trying to do a number of different things on cost of living. We haven't moved away from anything in relation to any decisions about the strike money. As I said, we haven't yet taken a decision on that. But that money will not go to the university, it will go to benefit students, which might be the most sensible thing, might be to put it into student hardship, but there might be also some other things that might be helpful. Depends how you define student hardship. There are different ways in which we could deploy that resource, and I think we should talk, happy to talk with students as well as with our colleagues in UCU as to how best to deploy that resource. Your second point, can you just very quickly remind me?
How the university is tackling the wage gaps within its system?
Yeah, so we've done an equal pay audit. We have a particular issue around pay gaps amongst the professoriate. There was not a gender pay gap, for example, in other areas. We don't really have an ethnicity pay gap at the university, I'm pleased to say, but we do have a gender pay gap, which is not, it's particularly marked amongst the professoriate. And so we're looking at that. We've taken some steps in terms of some uplifts to some of our female professors in recent years, but we're working with the Remuneration Committee, which is the chair of court, a committee of court, to work out how best to address the gender pay gap at the professoriate level. There is also the more structural gender pay gap that we have as a university, which is that many of our lowest paid staff are female and many of our highest paid staff are male. That is quite a difficult thing to address, and that's something that we are going to have to give really serious consideration to. One of our commitments under Aberdeen 2040 is to eliminate pay gaps across all protected characteristics. And as I say, we have a set of work streams under that issue, and doing an independent pay audit is one of the ways we do that, is to look at that and then work out what actions we should take from that independent review that's done every 2 years.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're just going to do a quick one, please.
Can you please elaborate on what you mean by the different forms of hardship students are facing and what you mean by that?
So hardship could be at an individual level where a student gets into particular difficulties and needs to approach the hardship fund. That's one thing. And then there are many students who one could do certain things collectively, like we're keeping the library open over the winter break, for example, which will benefit all students who might want to come in and use that as a warm space, for example. So there are a number of different things that could be thought about that might benefit students more collectively, rather than it being an individual payment to an individual student. So I'm not the expert on this. We have a whole team who in student services who I believe are working quite closely with AUSA to work out how best to support students through what is a very difficult period. And as I understand it, it's AUSA's #1 priority for the sabbatical team is student hardship, and we're working in really strong support of that as well. So that's what I meant. Nothing more complicated than that. It's just how do we best address the student hardship? Is it at an individual level where we need to be able to support some individuals, but other things we can do that would benefit a broader range of students across the whole university, recognizing that some people are suffering extreme hardship, others are suffering hardship as well, but it's not necessarily at the level that would see them approach, for an individual payment from a hardship fund.
Thank you very much for that. And now we're just going to move to Sai. Would you want to say something? No, that's fine. Okay. So this is going to be the last one, since we are slightly running behind on the timing. So any opportunity for any more questions from Professor Leidecker? Okay, excellent. In that case, thank you very much, Professor, for your time and for your answers. We really appreciate that. And also, once again, thank you very much to UCU representatives for your insightful information. What we will do now is we were just going to move on to the next part of the agenda, which will be co-options for Education Committee. Excellent. I'm sure most of you have been informed that we are planning to expand the council structure slightly from what it was previously. So you can see that we have just about 5 members who are going to be joining the Education Committee, just right here: School of Medical Science, Biological Science, LLMBC, Engineering and Geoscience. I'll let you have a quick look at the names. I don't think it needs too much timing anyways. Maybe around 20 seconds and then we can move on into voting.
Quick question. What does LLMVC stand for?
Language, literature, music, visual culture. At the Taylor Building. That's all I know about it. So that's clarifying information for you right there. One thing that I was just reminded as well is that these are not additional members. These are members that we were not able to fill in the initial election that we had. So that's just for that. And a reminder to everybody that there is only need of a simple majority for these people to be passed into the committee. Okay. In that case, votes in favour of all. We're going to be doing it all together, unless anybody has any objections to it. Okay. Votes in favour, please raise your hand. Okay. Votes against? Any abstentions? I assume that this is approved on that case then. Okay, excellent. So the co-options have been approved. All the 5 new members, congratulations to them. Okay, now we're just going to briefly discuss the dates for the future council meetings, as you can see right now. So these are the council dates on your left-hand side and the submission deadline, which you can also have a look at. This is just for you to be informed of what is going to be happening in the coming months for the dates within the future meetings. All right. Sure. Is there anything else? No? Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Cheers. This is also going to be approved, so we're going to have a quick vote on this as well. Yes, go ahead. You're right there.
So, can I ask why the submission deadline for the January council is before the start of term? Because surely that would cause problems, no?
It actually is not directed towards the start time of the dates for the courses teaching. Is mostly about the fact that the policies at the moment is in that way that it gives it a good bunch of time for people to have meetings on bylaw amendments or any other changes that might be proposed. So there will just want to be there enough timing for that to happen. But it's interesting you raised that question. What do you think is the problem with having that before the starting of the teaching?
If something did need to be raised, then how would we contact students other than email?
Right.
If we wanted to raise something, basically.
Absolutely. Well, that's totally up to the councillors to decide. If the councillors would want to change the submission deadline, then that's something that we are able to do. And we can certainly do that. Then obviously we've got channels of communication that doesn't necessarily require talking to students face to face. So we can certainly looking at, not just sending emails, but contacting them through social media on a personal level from the councillor to the students. But if you would like, we can also, I think we can consider changing the submission deadlines for that one particular council meeting. Sophie?
When would you change it to? So on the 1st of January?
No.
Oh, so like the 20th. Would then that give you less time to prepare something? To submit?
I mean, I suppose this is something we could have a conversation about. But I think having it before the start of term, when you're unable to see students and have a proper conversation, is my own personal.
The way I see it is you can have these discussions whenever you want to. This is just a deadline, so it doesn't really matter whether the deadline is 10 days before or after what you wish to when you wish to have it. So personally, I don't have an issue moving it, but I just don't see what you would gain because it wouldn't change anything for you to actually have these discussions or like to actually submit something if you were to submit something to council.
Okay. Can we just quickly go to debate here? Before you start, can I just say that our bylaws would require, if we want to change it to a later date, to be on the 17th. But if the council is happy and the majority of the council is happy with changing the submission deadline, then we have the flexibility of putting on the 20th. But then again, that's something within the discussions that can be made in the council and the discretion of the councillors. It's going to quickly go to you on that, and then we go to Adam.
I think that pushing it back till after refreshers might be something that we should consider, because certainly the way that I have been getting feedback from students has been just talking to them face to face. Over Christmas, I'm not going to be talking to students, and while I can try to get feedback online, I also think that I can stand at refreshers and say, hey, I'm on student council, do you have anything you want me to bring? And that is going to be a really, really efficient way for me to get feedback. And it would be a shame if that feedback we got, I wasn't able to use until the next month. I think definitely it would make the feedback that I receive better, which makes it worthwhile in my opinion.
All right, thank you very much. Before we move on, let me just, I've just given this information. The submission deadline on the first one is a typo. The correct date is the 16th. The correct date is the 16th. So if you're discussing to put it later, it's only a matter of 4 days we are talking about. Whether that's worthwhile the council time is for you to decide. I would rather move on with the rest of the agenda, which I think is very important because cost of living crisis updates from sabbaticals. So if you think, I don't think 4 days is going to make a lot of difference. So if everybody is happy, I might just move on with that. Okay, excellent. Let's move on. We're just going to vote on that very quickly on that case. And Adam, would you still like to say something? Oh, okay, excellent. On that case, we're going to move to voting on it. Everybody in favour of the current dates proposed, please raise your hand. And also for people to raise their hands online. I'm not sure who this is. I'm not sure who this is, just informing you. I know you're having a great time and we are certainly very, very happy for you. But can I just ask for you to mute yourself because the rest of the council can hear as well. Can we have everybody hands up again? Excellent. Everybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, on that case, I believe this has been approved as well. I wish that Professor Kylek was here to see the technology that we use to counting the votes as well. That would have been very impressive with the infrastructure that we have at the university. Now let's move on to the sabbatical officers update that's going to be done by Adam.
We'll all do our own pieces, I believe, but I'll be covering for...
Can you use the microphone there as well? Thank you so much.
Let's see. Hello? That's not on. Hello?
No.
Still not on. It's been a nightmare so far. There we go. Okay. Right. So yeah, as I said, I'll be doing the spelling report for myself and Vanessa as well. So our student president, Vanessa, as Nirvan said, is just feeling a little under the weather. But as you can see, Vanessa has been up to an awful lot the past month since our last student council. So that includes our graduations and grad ball, where she attended a couple of the graduations and assisted with the actual grad ball itself going ahead and attended that. Where all of our, well, not all of our, but some students were able to like celebrate their graduation. Then, as I said, so she's done the leading well in sabbatical conferences. So she's been at loads of different conferences. She went down to Leeds there last week, I believe, and so on. Winter break plans. So there'll be a wee update on that there further in the slides, just to say what sort of is going on in the university or with the student union over the winter break, and there'll be a small update on cost of living, which Sai will do as well. Or not a small update, a decent update on it. So we'll have a couple of other things there. So we'll have the student union strategy as well. There's also going to be a slide just giving a small update on the student union strategy, which I'll talk about as well when it comes up. Yeah, it's been busy.
That's all I've got to say for Vanessa. Oh yeah, I don't know why I read welfare there. Okay, yeah, so Vice President for Activities, so that is myself, Adam. Okay, right, so for those of you that don't know, I attended COP27 over in Egypt there in the middle of the month. Don't know how much is followed about COP, but wasn't a very brilliant one in terms of negotiations, but was still an experience to go and attend the COP itself. I'm also then right now very involved with the Granite City Challenge. So with it, as I said, as part of the plans, I want to make it like a proper commercialized event almost, you know, make it more university versus university. So we're looking about what ways we can do out there to make it more inclusive for the entire student population and not just our sports clubs which are competing. I'm also involved then in our refreshers, so that will be like our next set of events and stuff, obviously coming into the new term, which will be starting from the 16th of Jan until the 20th of Jan, so we'll have a wee bit of refresher stuff going on then. Also then, as I've announced before as well at the President's meeting for our activities, we have the activities ball. So this is a ball where we're bringing together our sports and societies. Instead of having separate balls, we're going to bring them together and run it as one large event instead of two separate. Just as an aim to be more inclusive again for all of our sports and societies. So then again, I've been at a couple of our SAB forums for AAS. So again, I'm I'm the elected chair of the Scottish Student Sport SAB forum as well. So I've been to meetings over the past couple of months just discussing what the sector of student sport is actually facing in terms of its problems and stuff, and what way we can action things together and work as universities together. Is sometimes difficult whenever you're not in the central belt of Scotland to have them discussions, but we do have our friends, we'll say maybe, RGU, that we can obviously work with on that. And so I've also been working a lot on complaints procedures. It has taken up an awful lot of my time this semester. Hasn't been fun to say the least, but it's an important part that we need to look at, and it is later up for discussion as well, which I will lead. And then, yeah, so we'll have our media fund update and student fund. So the media fund, people should now hear back from that and stuff, which is good. And our student fund, so we'll now be looking to open up applications for that. And that's all I've been up to. There's a brilliant photo of all the different countries that attended COP have like their own wee pavilions, and that is one of that's the Indian one there, pavilion, where they just like show what they've been like doing on sustainability and stuff in the country itself. And then yeah, so it was fun. I should also apologize that I'm wearing this here. I did bring chinos with me, but I forgot to bring the belt, so shorts and tights it is.
Thank you very much, Adam. I really appreciate your update on that. And we'd definitely like to hear more about your exciting adventures in Egypt. So please let us know more whenever you get a chance. We'd like to hear more. And now to Sai for his sabbatical update.
Good evening, everyone. Sai, Vice President for Welfare, pronounced she, her. Just a short update. I will be updating everyone on the cost of living further in a presentation, but I have been involved so far with the university in a working group for the GBV strategy and against GBV and sexual violence. We are looking at having consent trainings placed in collaboration with CASE, but more updates in the next student council. I was also involved in the 16 days of activism with the university in the steering group, and also the Reclaim the Night movement with the Aberdeen City Council. Shortly, as a university rep, I was also a part of organizing Take a Break, which is a series of events planned to de-stress students during exam period, which is a part of the Be Well campaign that is headed by university, and it is done in collaboration with the Students' Union. So you would have seen these graphics in our social media, and also events in and around our Hillhead space and also our student union space on campus. Apart from that, I have also been a part of various committees and also have been introduced to various steering groups at university. I have also been a part of Senate. We have successfully conducted our AGMs for all the forums this year in the Liberation Network, which has been a grand success, and that responsibility is shared with the Vice President for Communities, Camilo. As for the university marketing, Vanessa and myself have been in discussions with the university marketing team and how we can work on their comms and how we can involve the student union and student voice in their communications. Apart from that, I attended graduations, which is very trivial, but okay, I attended graduations, which was 2 weeks ago, and had the pleasure of seeing our Vice President for Education graduate as well. And apart from that, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Sai, for your update as well. Any questions on that? We're going to go to Sophie and then Gabrielle. Go ahead.
It's not for you. Sophie, Vice Chair for Sports. I had a question for Adam, but you didn't have a Q&A session, so I'm just...
Oh, okay. No, please, go ahead.
I'm just jumping back to Adam. Can you elaborate a bit more about the trustee fund board that you got an update on?
So the student fund. So that's the OUSA student fund. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. I'm just wondering how I remember you were mentioning they were still under process and you weren't sure how much money you would get. So if you get a bit of an update on that as councillors, that'd be great.
Yeah, so essentially the university have now went through all of the development trust applications, and the way that it works with the OUSA student fund is the money that's almost left over from that there is given to us or disbursed to us so that we can give out in the... Oh, I thought that was like a cough to say I was saying something wrong or something there. I was like, oh, I've misunderstood massively. But yeah, so the way it works then, so the money that gets disbursed to us, so we put that towards then the OUSA student fund, which, as I said, we now know how much money we have to give out, so we'll be opening up grants fairly shortly. We haven't set the date right now yet, because we have set the date for next semester's grants for just the sports and societies union grants, and we don't want there to be an overlap, but we also understand and appreciate that no one is going to want to submit one during the winter break either. So we're just trying to see where and when is actually the best time to start that process for the student fund, as well as just to avoid people duplicating their applications as well for both funds. But as I said, we'll try get stuff out. We only found out on, I think it was literally end of day Friday or something, and then I was at a conference yesterday and packed out today. So tomorrow is a day to just, sort of see what we'll do going forward with it. But hopefully that answers.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to move to Gabrielle, but before we do, please keep in mind that we are literally very short on time. So brief questions, brief answers. We still have to get to the motion and the bylaw changes. So please, let's just keep that in mind. Thank you very much.
Hello. Does the microphone work? Yeah, okay. My name is Gabriel. I'm the Vice Chair for Environment and Ethics, and I just wanted to ask something to Adam on the COP27. I was wondering if you could elaborate on what you also did there and why it was disappointing. But more to the level of what AUSA did for students in Aberdeen. Cheers.
That made an awful noise out there. So what we did, well, at COP itself, we attended different side events. So the way it works, I'll keep this as brief as possible. So the way it works is that you have your main negotiation section, which we wouldn't have had access to. We are observers, so we get access to side events that go on. So as represented for AUSA, but also for the university, I attended side events where we were able to choose a range of what you wanted to go there for. There were so many different topics around sustainability, obviously, and to be honest, I didn't know what I wanted to go there for. I'm no expert in sustainability whatsoever, so I wasn't sure what to expect or what I wanted from it there. But upon like being there, I actually got involved in discussions around like active mobility and public transport, as well as university stance and universities like influence on sustainability and decarbonisation stuff as well. So that's what like I attended them sort of lectures, and I'm using like the stuff that I learned there, the networks that I've created there, to sort of like then put into my work here, and again make networks or like share the networks with people here that's working on the same thing. So like Camilo and Joe and stuff that works with us ourselves.
Thank you very much. You're just going to go to very quickly, and this is going to be the last one on this. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry, Miles, Education Committee, he, him pronouns. Just a very, very quick question to Sai. You mentioned the Liberation Network AGMs. So there's obviously, I think, 5 Liberation, 5 Section 4. I was just wondering how, like, are all of those currently active? Do all of those have committees at the moment?
Yeah, all of them are active at the moment. We also have our postgraduate and mature students forum, which is also active, which was not for a very long time, but we have a convener for that as well. And yeah, everything's active.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think in that case, we're going to move on to the next update, which is going to be done by Vice President Education, Akua, who's going to be joining us online this evening. And can I just ask Akua and also Camilo for after that to please keep the updates to maximum of 2 minutes so that we can move on with everything else. Thank you so much. Akua, is to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Chairperson. Good evening, everyone. Sorry, I may not be able to put on my camera because I'm barely surviving on my internet.
Akua.
So.
Okay, I think
yeah, we
can. Okay, excellent. Please go ahead.
Forgive me, my network is really poor. Am I audible enough, please?
Yes, you are. As always, we can hear your beautiful voice. Please continue.
Thank you. So quickly, so we've been able to organize the first 3 months of our games night, and it's been a success. We've used that as a platform to touch base with the ordinary students who can easily, come to us and share their concerns and challenges, and we're able to signpost them to the appropriate quarters. Now, moving on to the student laptop scheme is still underway, as we have the backing of both the IT, the student support, as well as the library on our side. So any update on that, I would communicate it to you. But as it stands, we are still, in the pipeline. We've also opened conversations about Unito. So a quick one about Unito. Unito is a software, it's a system that is going to put all class reps or school conveners, school
Akua, I apologize sincerely. Would you please go over the Unito once again, because we lost you just briefly over there. So can you just repeat what you just said? And I've held your time, so you're only 38 seconds in, so you've got plenty of time. Go ahead.
Okay, slowly then. So
you can go ahead.
As it stands, it's still a conversation that we are having within the students' union, and it is going to have also where we can. Yes. Hello.
Akua, let's try for one last time, and if you got disconnected, I'm afraid we might just have to move on from that, and then you can just send it in the newsletter. I apologize for that. So let's try one last time. Let's go. We got this.
So Unito is a software system that we are hoping to get all our student leaders, be it school conveners, class reps, whomever, including the ordinary student, to be on it. And it's a platform that we are going to also have heads of schools to be on it, to be able to share ideas, so that the ordinary students will get to know what happens at SSC meetings. We don't have to always wait till bureaucratically information travel through the various channels to reach us. We can all see what happens on the channel on the platform. I'm not able to speak more to it because it's still something that my predecessor started, and I'm yet to have better insight about it. So as the agenda says, under my update, it says opening conversations about UNITO. So we're still at the preliminary stages. Now, moving on, we are working on library spaces, and it's a steering group headed by the librarian, Simon Bain. And we are looking at changing a whole lot of things in the library, where we see maybe a typical example is where we have the higher it goes, the noisier the library becomes, or the higher it goes, the quieter it becomes. You know, we have about 7 floors in the library. So maybe, so this is just a quick example of what we are looking into. We are looking into moving certain old books out of the library to create more space for students to have extra spaces to study on their own or in groups, what have you. And yes, I'm co-lead on Senate, and yes, I have a fantastic team on the education committee, and we've recently been joined in by 4 other schools, and I'm hoping to see more of their efforts so that we can best fight for the student voice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Akira. We really appreciate your update on this. Any questions on the update? All right, excellent. In that case, we're going to move on to the last update of the day from a sabbatical officer. We got Camilo, Vice President of Communities. Camilo?
Hello, everyone. I think I'm hearing myself. Okay, perfect. So I think I don't want to take too much time, but the main thing is the bike scheme. We're working on this with Adam, with several people also. I think a couple of people from our own committees, communities, and ANA. So basically, we applied to a big chunk of funding for the Just Transition Fund, and we want to expand our very small bike scheme to bring more and more free bikes for students. This will be electric bikes, and we'll also have more adapted bicycles for different abilities, for different skills, and for different abilities. So I'll just want to ask everyone to please share this and vote. We're competing with other community-based projects in the Northeast and in the city. So we really need to get everyone to vote on this, because it will just bring another transport help, another health help for students. For me, it's completely related to the cost of living. Right now, our bikes are going to the students in needs. So yeah, I'll let Adam focus on that a bit more, but that's my main call. Apart from that, I think it's important, and again, Sai will maybe talk a bit more about this, but we've been chatting with university again about hardship funds. We brought all of your concerns that were brought up here in the student council, that were brought up in the other different meetings organized by other groups of the university, and yeah, we're kind of like trying to make sure these are available for the people that actually need it. We're improving the form, the application form. We're improving the process. We had a conversation with them about culture, about how they receive students, how open they are, how culturally aware they are of the experiences of, for example, Tier 4 students and people that just moved to this country. So I think that's, for me, as a Tier 4 student, it's been a very important conversation. I think we're a step closer to make this an actual hardship fund that is actually useful for students. For me, it's very important also to say that something that we've been working on for at least since I started here a year and a half ago is equality, diversity, and inclusion at the student union. Of course, we do a lot of work at the university trying to transform the university and make it an anti-racist place, truly liberating place for everyone. So we're also working on that at our own student union. We've advanced in our, I'm gonna talk about this a bit more, but we're advanced in our complaint system, and we're advanced on our EDI systems, and we're gonna bring some external help from people with experience in student unions, especially in EDI, and I think I'm very excited about that. That should happen the next couple of weeks, in the next month, sorry.
Camilo, I'm so sorry to interrupt you there. Is that all done? Because I was just going to tell you, you've got 30 seconds to go.
Yeah, no, that was
Okay.
my last bit. I think you can, if anyone has any questions about any specific, just please send me a message or ask. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Camilla, for your update. And now we're just going to turn any questions or concerns on the update given by Camillo. Excellent. Thank you very much, Camilla, for your update. Really much appreciate that. Yes, Adam. Camilla can't hear because the mic wasn't on. But it's fine, we got it. Yeah. Okay, excellent. Should we move on? Fantastic.
Bike.
All right, excellent. And now we're up to the strategy update, which we finally have here. And I think Adam is going to take over.
Yeah, I believe we have a strategy update here. It's not really an update of the actual strategy itself, just where we are with it. So as I said there, the draft will be circulated for feedback before the winter break. So very, very, very shortly, there'll be a draft circulated. We will be doing workshops with the Student Council. And one thing I just really want to quickly take a vote on is if we would prefer to have this happen before or after the winter break. I can imagine what the answer will be, but I think it's still useful just to have that quick wee vote, which we'll do in a second. And then we are also in the middle of creating our performance indicators as well from the strategy that has been worked on, so that we can actually see where we're improving and actually measure it. Okay, it's very, very important to have the measuring part of it there. But yeah, so as I said, just really, really quick, a vote for it if possible, if you can lead that. Or
Thank you very much, Adam. We're going to have a quick vote on the date for the workshops with the Student Council, whether we want them to be before or after the winter breaks. So what I will do is just choose one and then just vote on that, and then that's clear. So people who approve of having the workshops after the winter break, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. People against? Any abstentions? All right, in that case, that is also passed. The workshops will be done after the winter break. Fantastic. Okay, so now we're just going to quickly talk about the Just Transition Fund to be done. And Adam is going to take over that. Yes, thank you very much, Adam.
Yeah, thank you. So I was going to go into all the detail there. Camillo's already went into most of the detail. Just the one very important thing to say is there how difficult the voting process actually is in it. I went through it there myself as well. And as I said at the bottom, you have to list 10, you have to vote for 10 different projects, and you can't vote for the same project twice or all of your votes will not be counted whatsoever. It's a very, very inaccessible voting structure, but it's important that if we're getting people to vote, we tell them in advance that you need to be very careful with the votes, because we don't want to get people to vote and then the votes be ineligible. Another wee small thing is I'm looking to try push this year, because I think, in my opinion, that we can target this year towards students, and yes, it is like essentially for our students, but I think that this is a citywide scheme, and if we're targeting students, we'd be lucky to reach a couple thousand in a city that has a population of over 200,000. So I think it's quite important to get out and actually do some campaigning in a main part of the city as well. So I think if anyone's interested in getting involved with that there, give me a shout, and we'll hopefully try organise something for later in the week or maybe the weekend as well. But I can fully appreciate if you don't have the time because it's exams, but if you do have the time and you're interested, or you know anyone that's interested, please give me a shout. And I think Gabriel will definitely be helping me on that share as well. Yeah, I think that's all.
Thank you very much for that. We're just going to move into the NUS delegation, and I think Sai is going to quickly go over that for us. Thank you very much.
So the NUS delegations is open for 3 conferences. That's the National NUS Scotland and NUS Liberation Conference. The details are provided to you in this slide. Just to give you a bit of a background of NUS for councillors who wouldn't know about it. It's the National Union of Students. Most unions in Scotland and over the UK are a part of the NUS, and they help in lobbying for national level campaigns, policies, and also it's a good opportunity for you to go and cultivate more campaigning skills and get involved in the movement firsthand. So if you have any comments regarding this, if you have any inquiries, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the email ID provided in the slide. And yeah.
Thank you very much, Sai. And we're just going to move in to the next bit now, which is the cost of living crisis. And I think that there has been a lot of work done on both sides, both from the sabbatical officers and also from the councillors, to bring about some changes that hopefully would have a positive impact on the lives of all of our students here at the University of Aberdeen. But before we get into any more information, we're just going to have a quick look at the agenda, and I believe that Sai is going to be talking over the cost of living crisis. So Sai, back to you again.
Thank you, Nirvan. We have our apologies from Vanessa. We both are the cost of living leads in the student union, so I will be filling in for her as well. So we have the agenda in front of you. That's the food share. We're going to talk about Union Brew, food bank access, hardship funds, and the winter break. And this is just an update. These are just things that we've been working over in the student union in collaboration with the university. Whatsoever, there has to be a lot more work done. So if you can go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So for the food share, we have achieved certain points that you can see. We have been lobbying university for more support and more food donations, which we have been getting in our food share. We have also been able to acquire £1,000 worth of Morrison's vouchers that has been given to us from university, and we will be contacting Morrison's for filling in our pantry for regular stock. We have a few points of action that we have put on, so please feel free to reach out if there's any questions. And we have our future vision sorted out as well regarding regular donations, and also being in contact with clubs and societies, and expanding on the food share and swap shop and donations in general. I'd like to pass this on to Adam for a Union Brew update.
Yes, so just a couple of things going on Union Brew. So again, if you are in need of hot water, you can get hot water at Union Brew for free, so we don't have to pay for that there. Also, as I said, things that we offer, there's microwaves as well. It's a comfortable place, Union Brew, to get away from the library, or if you don't want to do some work, it's still more comfortable than the library anyway, so it's your living room on campus almost. And we've extended the opening hours to make it slightly more accessible for people as well, so it is open until 8 p.m. as well. And we also have budget teas and coffees there for beverages. What we're looking about doing, and we'll hopefully have ready for launch after the winter break, we will have our breakfast budgeted options as well, hopefully in place, and we're also still looking into a variety of dietary options. So it was brought up at the last council to do look at the halal options and stuff, which we are doing, but it is coming to the end of the year for Union Brew to be open. It's difficult to order new stuff in then, which will maybe not come until the semester is actually done. So it's something that will be hopefully in place for next semester. Then the hot water dispenser, as mentioned there, so we're just going to make basically the free hot water more accessible by having an actual dispenser in Student Union building as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Just an update on the local food banks and how you can avail the service. Food banks in the local community are open to all members of the community, and except for a few organizations which have restrictions, and that are specified here. But we are also we're also looking into collaborating with certain food banks or maybe reaching out towards a community and bringing out, I mean, just providing resources in terms of communication and whatnot. So I think it would be fair if Vanessa could maybe provide more information in the next student council about this and more of an update. So we have been working a lot around hardship funds, and this is just to provide you with an update and also specify what the hardship funds, the existing hardship funds stand for. The hardship fund can be accessed by any student facing a deficit in amount that has gone away from their bank account for unforeseen circumstances. And these funds are placed for students who are registered students of the UK or EU and international students. That also includes Tier 4 students. So if you can see, there is a discretionary fund only for UK students, and there is another fund in place for international and EU students. So they are assessed on the same basis, but the guidance given for these fundings come from SAS, that's for UK students, and UKVI or UKISA, that's for international and EU students. And they will be able to avail this fund if they can prove that they have been, if they can prove evidence of hardships gone from their account, and there is, that doesn't have to be a negative or zero balance, to be very specific. So this is again the main difference just being pointed out, and I hope I was clear on the distinction between both. The only difference is that this the guidance for UK students, funding guidance for UK students comes from SAS, and the funding guidance for international and EU students comes from UKVI, that's the Immigration Office. To talk more about the winter break, this Duncan Rice Library will be open from the 26th to the 30th of this month. There is no services available, but there will be external security on campus for very limited times of, for limited hours of the day. And there is also a rector's Christmas lunch that's being organized at the Student Union building on the 20th at the food court. And more information can be availed through comms. So this, I think we have already provided an update on what the Student Union has been doing. The Student Union has been working in collaboration with the university through a working group that had been set up midway through the term. And we have lobbied for Union Brew to be open and our spaces to be open for more hours of the day. And like Adam mentioned, we have been looking at budget options in Union Brew as well. These are general updates that we had from last time as well, but we're still open to suggestions and also looking into more of comprehensive work that we can do over the next term for cost of living. These are the same updates from the last time that we had from the university side as well. And for now, I think it's safe to say that the cost of living working group has been put on hold until the winter break ends, and we will be looking into it in the next term. So apart from the Sir Duncan Rice Library being functional and no staff being available, there is no further update. And apart from the hardship funds, really. Yeah. So if there are any questions regarding anything in specific to any of the slides, please do let me know. Should we open it? Do we have time?
Just bear in mind that obviously this is something very important. We also have the bylaws, 2 amendments to bylaws that are going to be done. So if there are going to be any questions, please keep them brief and also brief answers.
Or else there is an option. You can reach out to me via email or social media if you have any questions, and I'm happy to answer them if we're running out of time.
Okay. Yeah, we're just going to go to. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
Christina.
Yeah, Vice Chair of Achiever. I have actually two questions regarding Adam about the work plan. How do you, or do you have in mind to guarantee that this is not like this kind of a second option, like worse option, the other deal or the other seat that's being offered that day? And regarding the hardship fund, are there any plans to make the criteria transparent? Like, accessible online, so apply actually know like if they have a real chance to get the hardship fund? And are there any students that are currently affected or who can receive the hardship fund if they are the ones that need it the most?
Okay, we're going to go to Adam very quickly for the first question.
Yeah, so as you know, like what we serve at Union Brew is mainly like the bagels and stuff like that there. So our option that we're looking at is literally just as simple as tea and toast breakfast options. So it'll be like different enough from anything else in the menu for it to like be noticeably like different, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, Si, we're going to go to you on the second one.
So all this information in the slides have been put forward from the university website. There have been, we have dedicated websites on the university.
Hallelujah.
So, or if we could just go to the slide. All of this information has been provided by the university website and has been cited from the university website. So we either can make that more evident through comms, we can push that through comms as well, but we do need, like Camilo, our Vice President for Communities, elaborated on the hardship funding. We have proposed a few changes even in the application, and the eligibility criteria it's open to all as of now, and that includes Tier 4 students, EU students, and UK students. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Okay, excellent.
Second part about whether there are any students currently affected or
Honestly, we cannot hear you. Yeah, please change to a different mic.
Just if there are any students currently affected by the hardship fund or in the working group.
Sorry, before you answer, just two things. Can I have Christina move somewhere else where the microphone works? Just that, you know, it's easier for you because I know you're a very active member and we really appreciate that. We just want to make sure everybody can hear all your important input. Can we have it on 30 seconds, please?
So the working group at the Students' Union comprises of the sabbatical officers and SMT, and the working group at university comprises of myself, Vanessa, and university staff members from the student support and also SMT. So there are no students involved, but we do have data from, we do have students who reach out to us in inquiry about these funds. We have signposted them to student support because they are the ones who take them forward and also process the applications. So yeah, we have been in touch with students regarding this, and students have been availing these funds, if that answers your question.
Okay, thank you very much. Babak, quick one, please.
Sure, just a quick one. I've been speaking with like a few students from all around the UK. Just like the Vice President earlier said, they have made a one-off payment to staff because of their wages cut, about like £750. University of Manchester have made a one-off payment to all their students of £150. because of the cost of living. I wonder if that would be something that possible we could discuss that with university. Thank you.
I wish I had an answer at the moment, but I don't. And I think we could open conversations, but at the moment, without having, I don't know, I don't think I can comment on that so far. I think that would have to wait until the winter break and in the next cost of living meeting and the next update on Student Council.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it is time for us to move on to the next bit, which is the bylaw amendment, which will be done by Camillo. That would be Amendment 13, Bylaw 13, I apologise, which is on election regulations. So I think Camillo will take over from this part.
Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you. It's very, we try to simplify the process. Basically, you can check the details in the papers. More straightforward. I think we're happy about the success we had in this past election. We're basically applying this to sabbatical elections. We're working in this with Adam mostly, and we've both been involved in several elections from different points of view. So we're working on that experience. We're also not going for re-election. So I think we're in a good position to be neutral about this. So basically, there were some like very old aspect of this bylaw that I think made the elections less accessible and also less appealing or interesting for students. So we basically changed some of that and just make the process a bit more straightforward. And yeah, we've also based these decisions on research on what the sector is doing, what other student unions are doing at the same time. And I think we were a bit like behind in some of the changes and some of the how to adapt to new times in this election. So hopefully, we're pretty sure that this will bring at least success the size we had for councillors. Hopefully we'll have at least that turnout for the next election. So I'll just invite everyone to accept these changes. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Every single councillor has been provided with a copy of Bylaw 13. And for the sake of the conversation and for everybody to be aware of what has been going on, obviously you had time. I think there's already been sent an email about this as well beforehand, I believe. So this is not hopefully a surprise to any of the councillors. But for the sake of clarity of this matter, I will allow 1 minute reading time for everybody to have a quick look at this, and then we can proceed with any questions on this. Okay, thank you very much. I've already had a chance to have a quick read over this. As I've said previously, this was emailed to every single councillor, so hopefully you were already familiar with the contents of the two amendments that are in debate. Firstly, bylaw 13 that we were talking about this evening. Any questions on this? Yes.
Miles, Undergraduate Education Committee, he, him pronouns. Yeah, just two brief questions. The first one is the amendment, as far as I can see, removes the Elections Committee. I was just wondering what the rationale there is and what the possible implications might be of that. And the other one was there's also no provisions on referenda in there, I think, anymore. So I was wondering if that's going to be moved somewhere else or if, you know, there's other procedural you know, things there. Thank you.
Camilla, I think you would be happy to take that one.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So about the committees, so I'm getting feedback, sorry. It's pretty hard.
Yep, Kenny. Okay.
Okay, that's better. Yeah, so we think that students, we're a student-led organization. We think students should be involved in every single one of our political decisions. And I think election regulations are not a political decision. Like, they need to be there to be neutral and make sure that students have equal opportunities and that things are being done in a fair way. It's not about, you know, politics. And I think having a committee of students, you know, actually in the past made it a bit more like that. Again, we look at the sector, we look at other student unions, and everyone is just surprised that we have an elections committee with students. It's something that hasn't been done in years. So this is just part of a general change to just make sure that, yeah, elections are just open and are fair for everyone. So again, in short, I think the election regulations are not political decisions. So I think students should committee students are more like for that kind of political decisions or the general direction of the student union.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Any other questions?
Sorry, the referendum. It's a separate bylaw. Yeah.
Okay. I'll be happy to move on.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Any other questions on the proposal? Excellent. One more thing that I actually wanted to clarify, Camilla, is in section 4, subsection 2, the standing council election shall be held at least once per academic year at a time chosen to maximize the student engagement. Is that the responsibility of the returning officer, or is that who is in decision maker on that one?
Yeah, I think it's part of the same process, no? Yeah.
Okay, so that would be the same process. Am I right to assume?
Yes.
Oh, okay, excellent. Thank you very much. In that case, if everybody is happy, we can move on. Yeah, you've got a question?
I'm really sorry, just one more. There was the previous bylaw 13 had a complaints procedure outlined. I was just wondering whether there is a procedure for election complaints or whether that's going to be moved into the new complaints procedure. So I haven't had a chance to read the new bylaw 12 yet, but yeah, thank you. No.
Before Camilla answers, I believe section 8 kind of covers that on the complaints issue. If you have a look at it, it's on the 3rd page of the document. But if Camilla wants to make any more comments, I'm more than happy to have that.
Apologies. Yeah, in that case, I withdraw that. My bad.
No worries. If you've got no more questions, then we shall move on to the voting and approval of bylaw 13. Okay, excellent. Everybody in favour of bylaw 13 changes, please raise your hand. Did you have a question? It's important to mention that a 75% majority is needed for this bylaw to be changed. So. Anybody against? Please raise your hand. Any abstentions? On that case, the changes pass. Excellent. Okay. And now we're just going to move to bylaw 12, which is going to be done by Adam. Adam, can I once again just emphasize of keeping this slightly brief as possible? Thank you very much. We've got pizzas coming at 8. I know that business is more important. Just reminding everybody that we have pizza at 8. So.
Yep, I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. So essentially, I've never been involved with making amendments to bylaws, and my first time doing so, I am proposing to completely remove it. My proposal is with the complaints procedure to remove the complaints procedure from bylaw. Again, it's something that I don't think is a political procedure whatsoever. I think that it's something that should be professionally supported and only done professionally through the student union itself. So what the aim is, again, is that essentially I've been highly involved with complaints this year, and it's taken up vast majority of my time, and the complaints policy just isn't working how it's currently sitting, and the complaints aren't working. And I quite honestly don't want my successor, the person coming in after me, to spend so much time doing what I'm doing myself. So I think that we need to make a serious change with the complaints, so that they don't, and that complaints are being dealt with appropriately. As I said, so there'll be more of a focus on what I'm proposing is that we have a complaints procedure that's not part of our bylaws, but is up to date and in line with industry-wide ones. So we've drafted up a new complaints procedure based off that from a couple of different institutions in Scotland, so one being Strath, as well as then comparing it with the university's procedures as well, so it's more in line there. And yeah, we've got a couple of different things that will be added to that there as well, which includes like addition of like behaviour contracts as outcomes, and mediation as outcomes of the complaints procedure as well, because it doesn't really state a good list of what our outcomes are. But again, no point going into the massive details of the drafted one, because you can see it on the document itself anyway. But yeah, as I said, it is not political at all, so I don't think it's another very small point is that whenever it comes to changes and stuff of it, if you want to keep in line with the industry, it's much easier to do that there and update bylaw or update the procedures itself if it's not part of bylaws, where it has to be voted on in student council, where if there's something that urgently needs change, you don't have to wait a month and then have the chance of it not to actually get passed through whenever it should be passed through as well. So I think it's just important to get that point across. But yep.
Thank you very much, Adam. Sophie?
Yes, hi, Adam. I fully appreciate that you want to get rid of that part of your role as VP for Activities and not put it on anyone's shoulders as your successors. I was just wondering who would fill in that position. Is it someone you'd employ full-time to solemnly deal with complaints? Or is it another member of ALSA or the university that would take care of these complaints? And if that were to be the second option, then would it not just be a repeat of what you're going through right now?
Yeah, so definitely there's two parts of it. So the second part is something that will be needed taken into consideration with the new complaints procedure, where if certain things are brought up, it's automatically passed through and put through the university's complaints procedures as well, because some things may not be within our capacity right now. But we will be doing like there's staffing restructures where we can like rewrite within roles about what is in the role, and that's something we'll be definitely looking at, as well as what and who has the capacity to actually deal with the complaints at our level as the student union, and then what complaints then are not within our capacity, so would have to be passed on to the university instead. I hope that answers.
It does, but wouldn't that be an issue? Because the way I understand it is we want to go to ALSA because ALSA represents us more than the university would. So what would students have if the complaints procedure disappeared within ALSA and then they only can rely on the university to be able to get support?
Yeah, so I think on that there, it's not the going to the university will be part of our complaints procedure with more serious complaints that isn't within our capacity to deal with. It's not to say that complaints won't still come to us ourselves. We obviously still want to be as accessible as possible for students. And again, feel like we have done it there with it's awful the amount of complaints that come through to us, but it is good in one sense that we are accessible. Students want to come to us. So I think that's important that we still want to keep that side of it. Like, we want students to come to us with complaints and support them with it. And again, like, we'll still be offering our services and support through the complaint procedures, even when it goes through the university's procedures as well itself.
Thanks, that makes sense. And lastly, my understanding, this is still a draft and you're still waiting approval. I was wondering, who are you waiting approval from exactly?
I think we just need to, I don't know, maybe just chief exec, I don't know. So I think we just need to get like approval from ourselves, like, we actually just need to meet as like senior management to go through and like say, okay, right, this is in line with what we want, it's in line with the industry sector, it's in line with the university's procedures and stuff. It's just a matter of just getting the fine details. But the draft itself is fairly solid if you take a look through it as well. But I think we are very, very close to that stage, and hopefully we'll get that changed.
And when would you expect that change to take?
Likely for next semester as well, the new term.
Okay, so if we remove this bylaw, what complaint procedure do we have between now and the draft being approved?
So this procedure would probably still be that one that is followed until the new procedure is actually in place, I believe. Okay, yes. Yeah, that is also true. So if we remove a bylaw, that has to be brought to trustee board. So it would then have to actually be the bylaw. That procedure would stand until voted the trustee board to remove it from the bylaws.
Isn't it a replacement though that we're doing here? If you've got a draft,
it's a removal from the bylaws.
The bylaw, okay.
But then we'll be introducing a new complaints procedure that's not political, not part of bylaws. Yeah.
So what's the difference between it being a bylaw and it not being a bylaw? Like, how would that change how the kind of support that students would get?
So that doesn't change the support its actual self. The procedure would likely still be the same, but it's whenever it comes down to changing policies, if we're like looking to change our procedure or anything like that, it makes it a lot more difficult to jump through the loops of student council to like make changes with procedures that are like so desperately needed. We wouldn't want that to like be a factor that's like slowing us down and change.
Okay, Adam,
and again, as I said,
so
it's
sorry
not
to interrupt you right there. Because of the shortage of time,
sorry,
and because of the fact that some of the things are not clear here, I'm just going to go to Camilla very quickly, and then we're gonna make a decision on it. Camilo?
Yeah, just want to say that the main reason, again, is similar to the previous bylaw. Like, we don't want this to be a political thing. For example, if I go to AUSA with a complaint about racism, I don't want a committee or the council to vote if that is a valid thing or not. I don't want this to be part of the democratical structure. We want this to be part of a separate structure with this support structure where you have professional people taking care of this. So sabbatical officer will still be a point of contact, and we're also improving our own training on that. But I think some or many of the complaints, for example, about complicated topics are above our paid grade in many ways. It's not only about workload. The workload will still be there for our team. It's more about the nature of these issues. So if this is something that is a complaint, for example, it's about racism, about sexism, we don't want this to be in the hands of just the council voting about it. And I think I just want to say again what Adam says. It happened in the past that we noticed that there's something that isn't working in this procedure, and we need to wait a long time to just change it and just adapt to new times. So I'll just encourage everyone again to accept this. It will be better for students.
Thank you very much, Camilo. I know that from the debates that have just been made in the student council, there are certain things that they might not be clear about. So we're just going to go to Christina and then.
Christina, Vice Chair Communities. I have a question about the stage 1 initial complaint structure. Because on one hand, it says currently that anonymous or on behalf of someone else would be dismissed in all cases, and that only, well, named complaints will be followed up on, as I understand that. And my question is, how will that guarantee the safety of the persons making the complaint in case of discrimination, especially when we're talking about sexism or racism, as Camilo explained? Well, those are very sensitive topics, so the person might not be wanted named, especially in, well, when it comes to the confrontation with a potential lecturer or any other person. So if you could maybe elaborate that, if maybe I understood it wrong, or how is that going to be handled in this situation?
Okay, Adam, would you like to take on that, or you would have a turn on your mic? Yeah.
So I would say that whenever it comes to cases around like the very, very sensitive topics that you mentioned, it's not something that we would actually be able to deal with within our capacity. So it would fall under, like what I said with Sophie, is that like we would still offer our support services, but things like that there aren't within our capacity as staff or student union. And the university itself is much more equipped to like deal with these sort of things. So it's something that we would like say we can't like fairly investigate a complaint as well that's like anonymous or anything as well. So it's, I'd say yeah, it's something that would go on to university procedures instead. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I'm kind of unsure how that's gonna work then, like in practically, like if somebody approaches you anonymously, they will unlikely approach the university as well if it's that sort of sensitive topic. So I don't know if that part just needs a bit more clarification or a bit more variation on the way you treat that, maybe, especially when it comes to anonymous or behalf of someone. Like that's not dismissed in any cases, but maybe a bit more nuanced.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, so just to be clear, I know it says dismiss, but that's not like as abrupt, okay, like someone's came to me with a sexual harassment case, I don't care, I don't like it's being dismissed. It's more about like, you know, we're still gonna obviously offer our support services for that person, but in terms of like actual outcomes from investigations, it's that we can't like, we don't have the capacity or like we're not trained enough to like deal with the outcomes of that there matter. And I don't think for a lot of these cases that we can't action a serious enough outcome itself either. You know, like our ability for outcomes isn't as serious what the universities is itself. You know, like we can remove a member from attending activities or something, for example. But again, if the what's the word? If the punishment doesn't fit the crime, sort of thing, it's nearly taken into account that as well with it. And again, as I said, so like it is a draft as well. So if there's areas that people think that isn't sufficient enough detail, or you want like more clarification on, it's absolutely open for like inputting that detail into it to make it more clear. But it is still a draft right now. Yeah.
One thing for all the councillors to remember is that we are not voting on the new draft. We are voting on the removal of bylaw 12 as it is right now. That's what we are voting on today. We are not voting on the new draft. As Adam also mentioned, the draft can still be changed to the ways that the councillors fit better for purpose. So that's something that the work, the collaboration between the councillors and sabbatical officers can do in the future. But what we are voting on today is precisely the removal of the current system as it is. So please keep that in mind when voting on it. And can we just go to you very quickly? And that's the last one, I'm afraid. So please go ahead.
Hosa from Education Committee. Why, instead of removing it, improving it?
So essentially we'll be doing both. So we'll be removing the bylaw completely to make it more professional and reintroducing a new complaints procedure that will still be accessible, it'll still be accessible for students. Students will still easily see where our complaints procedure is, so that they know it's being followed and stuff. But as I said, it's more about like the actual changing of the bylaw. It makes it very difficult if we need to update procedures or policies, and it just makes it much easier for that process than going through the student council and voting on changes to policies.
Thank you very much, Adam. Once again, we need to vote on this today, so that's something that needs to be done. If the councillors are happy with removal, that's for them. If they're unhappy with it, that's again up to them. So you can show and you can shape the system as it goes with your own votes. So that's going to be up to you. I'm afraid that's enough time we had for the discussions on bylaw 12. So we're going to be moving to the voting stage at this part. So everyone in favour, just in mind that 75% majority is needed for this. So anybody in favour, please raise your hand. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Bylaw 12 passes, 75% majority. So that's also done, the removal of it. Excellent. Because we have some time constraints on this, we've got 3 business to go over. I know 2 of them are kind of brief. One of them is the emergency motion. We can move this to the next meeting. My personal preference is to do it in this meeting. But again, that's up to every single council to decide. If everybody's happy to go over these over the course of this meeting, is totally up to you. My preference is to do it in this meeting, since I think that emergency motion is quite an important topic to do. But again, that's going to be up to you. Is everybody happy to continue with discussing these? Because we're going over time. Okay, excellent. We're going to be looking at the cost of living crisis motion that was proposed by Nivitha, Gabrielle, and then seconded by Thomas and Christina and Caitlin and also Benjamin. On this motion, may I have one of the proposers to just briefly give us an overview of what this is about and what are you aiming to achieve?
Hello, hello. Is this microphone working now, or?
I still think that I'm not sure if people can hear you.
I don't think it. I can move.
No, it's not.
Else.
Yes, I think that would be great, Gabrielle. Right. And can I also ask Adam to turn off his microphone as well? Thank you very much. Go ahead, help yourself.
Hello, hello. Oh, yes. This makes more sense. Okay, my name is Gabriel. I'm the Environment and Ethics Vice Chair, and I'm just going to quickly read over or explain our motion on cost of living crisis.
Gabriel, I'm afraid I have to interrupt you. Please do not read it. Just give us an overview of it, and then we can go over it, because I think everybody had a chance to read over it. Thank you.
All right, cheers. So yeah, as we all know, that the cost of living crisis is a big thing, and as Carl Leidecker said a while ago, the cost of living crisis, cost of living rise sharply over the last few months. So we have to kind of answer that as a student council. That this obviously negatively impacted the student community, and we want with this motion, we want just to have in writing that that we recognize the severity of this cost of living crisis within students and their well-being, and we want to kind of as AUSA as the main representative of students. We want them to kind of lobby. Well, firstly, how you say it? Recognize that this is a real issue, and lobby the university who we believe are not doing enough to address this issue. So that's one big thing we want this motion to kind of address. And also we want AUSA to lobby the university to take action by our two main points, to restructure the hardship fund and its eligibility criteria, because I think it's not up till now it's not been transparent enough. I think there's a lot of good work that's been done so far, and we also want to advocate the establishment of a university-run food bank to help out.
Thank you, Gabriel. I'm sure some people want to ask questions. One thing that I can say clearly is that it certainly is a very, very important piece of motion that has been brought forward. But one of the problems I found with it is that it's not precise enough. It certainly is suggesting a very, very valid point, which is the hardship funds and the eligibility criteria for them can certainly be restructured, but you do not emphasize clearly what is it that you're looking for in the restructuring it. And I think that is precisely something that before putting it into emotion, we need to be clear what are we exactly wanting from this. So I'm certainly in favor of having the kind of discussion on supports for the hardship funds, but we also want to make sure we are very specific on what is it that the council is asking for. We're going to go to Sophie very quickly on this.
I would just like to add upon that. That's also something I've noticed myself with the motion you're putting forward. There is a lot of points like you want immediate support for students. What does that entail? I think you can tell from Sai's and Vanessa's work that they do acknowledge the gravity of the cost of living crisis. It's like the 50p porridge that you can get from MacRobert, the £1.50, £1.50 breakfast you can get from Union Brew. So we can't say that AUSA has not acknowledged the issue. I think they're working really hard to support students the best way they can as a student union. And we need to also acknowledge that they are also experiencing the living crisis in their own respective ways. So we're all in this together, and it's not just students. And I think, we're very lucky to have SABs that care enough to work to really lobby the university already to make these changes that makes this campus just more accessible for all students, especially in those times where it's also exam season. So 24/7 library, 8 p.m. opening with Union Brew, which is great. So everyone can stay in the university as long as they can, just to keep warm and not stay at home and be, freezing cold, and be in good conditions to be able to sit their exams. So I think the university, well, at least AUSA has done a lot of work. And just to go quickly to lobbying the university to do the same, I do believe they also do the same. They've literally created a on their website, a page specifically for the student living crisis, where they've provided loads of resources, whether it is for the hardship funds, whether it is how to better manage your money and how to, smartly use your money as well. So I think the university has acknowledged the issue as well. So even if you were to agree on resolving, having AUSA to acknowledge the gravity of the situation, they have. Lobbying the university, well, the university has also acknowledged the issue. So there are a few things that are already in place that the motion does not actually really bring any effect, any sort of changes. And just to go quickly to the food banks, just like Sai pointed out, there are a lot of food banks in Aberdeen, and I don't see what would it change if the university were to have their own food bank, because that's something that is already very available to our community. So personally, I also agree with the fact there's a lot of details lacking, but you also already cover a lot of things that have already been done by the university and the student union. And just quickly to go to the eligibility criteria, I emailed Ellie just before the student council to see what are these criterias that you're looking to change? And it'd be good if you could be a bit more clear on what is not transparent enough and what do you need clarification on and what do you expect the student union to change to make this hardship fund more accessible? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophie. We got some comments from Camillo, but before we go to Camillo, I would just like to emphasize the fact that I think majority of us, I only speak on my own behalf here, but I do believe the majority of us are certainly in favor of having a motion to tackle cost of living crisis and to certainly ask and demand more, both from the student union and the sabbatical officers and from the university to certainly do more. But I'm sure they have done a lot. They have done their best. I've seen it firsthand, the great work that everybody is putting through, both the student union and also the university, but there is certainly a lot that can be done. I have no doubts in that. But the sensitivity of this motion therefore requires for it to be more detailed. That's certainly something that we should, because this is such an important piece of motion that you don't want there to just be passed with a few comments about a few topics very briefly. I feel like this could actually be something that it could be considered as a big achievement, hopefully, by the end of the term of this council. So that's something to keep in mind. Before we go to Sion, we're going to go to Camillo very quickly. Camillo? Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you. So again, I'll just say, of course, I completely agree with what the motion says about the council notes and the council believes. I think we're on the same page, but then I don't see a connection with what it resolves. I'm aware, I think we're all aware of the great work that especially this group of councillors and the group that the Student Against Cost of Living are doing. You organize meetings, you're gonna organize survey, numerous ways of getting feedback and detailed information, but I'm not seeing any of that in this motion. Imagine that this is going to stay here for 3 years or something. So after we leave, the next generation of sabbatical officers will just have to do kind of like what this says, but based on what is on the text. They cannot go and ask the people that put it forward. So when it says this restructuring the hardship fund, it could mean just, I don't know, make it harder to access, so it needs detail for it to be effective. On that thing, so I think that needs detail. And then the second, advocating for a university-run food bank, I will just plainly disagree with that being a good outcome. I think we're fighting for the cost of living, trying to improve the position of living. I think that's our mandate, instead of creating like basically a welfare, or more like basically what we're doing is fighting against the need of food banks. And I think our approach should be more radical than what this motion is asking for. So I will go back and work on this a bit more. I'm happy to help. We're happy to help. But as it is, my position will be just to present this in a better or more developed version in a further meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Camillo. We're going to go to Sai very quickly. Just please bear in mind that this is more of a Q&A than a debate, so please just keep that in mind.
Okay. No, I just had a few comments to add, and thank you for bringing this forward. And we completely agree that this is a grave crisis, and we have been, as much as we have been involved with university, we are also happy to involve students and set up, like we mentioned the last time, set up maybe a separate working group, but also keep you all updated apart from council as well. That's something that we can do, and that's something that we can accommodate within our schedules as well. And as much as I am in agreement to a lot of what the motion says, I also agree with Camillo and about how we could work together to make maybe a more robust policy on cost of living and have a bigger impact and lobby university more regarding resources and whatnot. Regarding food banks, I think I missed out a few points in clarifying that, okay, as much as it's accessible to everyone, it also does take a great deal of resources that needs to be invested in actually setting up a food bank. And I I am not in a position to give an update on that or actually provide a comment on that. So, and I also agree with Camilo that our approach should be a bit more radical and push for more resources, because after all, we are students of this university. And regarding hardship funding, I hope the clarification that we provided in our update was sufficient for now, but we're again open to more comments or more feedback regarding that as well. And regarding restructuring the eligibility of LGBT criteria, that's a long shot. And I think Camilo has also briefed you enough regarding that. So yeah, that's all the comments I had.
Thank you very much. Yes, Christina.
Christina, Vice Chair Communities. So, I mean, we can see through the discussion that the motion is certainly not, like, it lacks on certain points that we need to discuss. And I mean, we could make amendments and discuss it further today. But I think one point that Camilo raised was if we're going to work together and really work on this motion to have another motion pass the next student council, and maybe vote on the proposal Camilo made if we want to do that, if we want to continue that. I don't know if that's a thing we can do, but kind of like stated that we want a motion pass, that we want to keep on working on the cost of living crisis until the next meeting.
Thank you very much, Christina. Just for my own sake here, are you saying that I didn't understand precisely what you were asking? Were you saying, should we make it another draft and vote on it next time? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but like vote today that we're gonna work on that, like just to fix that and have that in the minutes.
Okay. Okay, so before Sai just gives out on that, what we can do is, if everybody is happy within the council to work together on this, what we can do is we would have to ask one of the proposals to withdraw their motion for today. And what I will do is I will make this the top priority for the next meeting. So this is the very first thing that we will discuss in the agenda for the next meeting. Because I think this is a top priority and you guys have done an incredible job on this. We just want to make sure that it is detailed enough before we can pass it. So if you want, we can have you guys withdraw it and then do it in the next one, but that's totally up to you. That's a decision that you can make. And before we do that, I'm just going to go to Sai and then we're going to come back to you. Sai?
Sorry, my PC just ran out of battery. So can I propose for a procedural motion, and if I could get any seconders for that? Seconded.
Okay. Now, on that case, I would just have to ask one of the proposals, one of the people who proposed the motion, to just verbally, please, withdraw the motion for this meeting. And then what I will do is, because for the sake of time, before you say it, we got the bosses and we also have the committee, which I'm also going to be, if you don't mind, putting it for the next meeting as well. We're already almost 30 minutes over time. So we're just going to have that verbally withdrawn for this meeting. And then what I will do is, this is going to be the very first thing in the agenda for the next meeting. Gabriel?
Yeah, I just wanted to answer some questions because I thought it was going to be a Q&A, but there was a lot of questions. I can't remember all of them, but I guess we wanted to present this before winter, before the thick of winter, just because that's the toughest point for students. So I agree that that restructuring and hardship fund might be understood wrong, and maybe someone could make it harder. I don't think anyone's evil enough to do that, but we never know. We never know. I guess kind of defending the food bank. It is kind of something that I guess it would take longer than right now to develop. So maybe Camilo is right in saying that we can be more radical, but it's also something that is helpful for some students, and some students have. I've heard that they have faced some difficulties, or maybe even wouldn't like to access a food bank that is not part of university. So maybe it being offered by university would be a nice thing. But yeah, I just wanted to answer some questions before I say, okay, maybe we can work on this and make it a bit better. So I'm just gonna see some answers to that, and then I'll verbally withdraw. Okay.
Thank you very much, Gabrielle. Before we go to Sai, because what you said, I just wanted to clarify. Would you like to withdraw it, or would you like to go into the voting? Just want to be aware of that.
I'm just going to see what Sai says first, and then I'll.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. No worries.
So thanks, thank you, Nirvan, and thanks, Gabby, for bringing that in. Just to clarify, university also has been providing. We are also working with university in providing more discrete pantry services. So if any student wants to avail them, they do have to reach out. There is a cost of living page established, and they can reach out and avail those resources as well. And they're really discreet. They, I mean, I think, yeah, that's at the disposal of students as well. So that's something that I really wanted to point out. That's not, I'm not going to amplify that as a big win. Of course, there's a lot that we can work on together. And I completely understand where your stance is from, but this is just a clarification that I wanted to give, that we do have very discrete provisions for students in need as well.
Okie dokie, I'll withdraw, and sorry for making you all wait, but yeah, it's an important thing.
No.
Cheers.
Thank you very much, Gabrielle. No, it's no bother at all. This is the responsibility of the council to do this kind of stuff, and we really appreciate your time and everybody else who proposed this motion. And I think both AUSA and the councillors look forward to working together on this, and hopefully this would be our first point of agenda for the next meeting. Thank you very much. On that note, thank you all for your inputs for this meeting. I think it was a very productive one. We kind of went over a large number of different items in our agenda this evening, and I think it was a productive one. Hopefully it was a productive one for everybody. Thank you very much, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks to you as well.